Hi guys, Justin here, coming to you today from Cordova Pass, which is in between Aguilar and La Veta, Colorado. Really beautiful place. I've camped in these woods right here before. I had an elk come right up on my tent. It was a pretty neat experience, and trying to share another beautiful place with you. Today I want to talk to you about immigration. In my first episode, I talked to you about the Good Samaritan and how we ought to treat each other, because that's the way we ought to start this thing out, a good foundation for everything that we do. Secondarily, I talked to you in the second episode about the dangers of the rapture. Didn't say much about the theology itself. I just talked about the work that we ought to be doing, and maybe a little less talk about rapture and a little more talk about the work we ought to be involved in. So today, immigration. Let me take you down the road of a scenario real quick. Imagine for a moment that you're facing a moral dilemma. You have no money, no job, no prospects. You've come to the end of your rope and your family is starving. You have a choice to make. You know of a bakery that leaves a window unlocked every night. And here are your choices. You can steal bread and feed your family, or not steal bread and allow your family to starve. So what do? Well, hopefully you steal the bread and save your family. But you say, wait, that's illegal, Justin, how can you support it? And I would agree it is illegal, but I'll support it every time. What you faced is what is called a moral dilemma, a true moral dilemma. Now here's the answer. One of these choices is morally right, but legally wrong. And one is legally right, but morally wrong. And this is what makes it a moral dilemma. And I'll take the moral road every single time, because laws change according to who's in office, at the whims of the ruling party. The moral compass that humanity knows, though, it doesn't change. It's known by C.S. Lewis, calls it the law of man. It's written on our hearts. The objective truth that we know is right or wrong, regardless of where we are, regardless of our ethnicity, our gender, our political affiliations. We just know right and wrong. So it's always correct. I'll take that road every time. That's a slippery slope, I know. We face one of those things today. We have illegals in our midst, right? So say some. Over the last 4 years, they have poured over the border by the tens of thousands. Of course, there are political reasons for this, and to believe otherwise is just to be naive. But outside of the political issues, how are Christians supposed to respond? We've been challenged. I can't go on Facebook without somebody blaming Christians for multiple problems, or questioning, how do we call ourselves Christians and support deporting people? And that's a great question. And I believe we should have an answer to it. So here's mine. First, I want to encourage Christians to simply refer to a person as a person. People. The term illegal might fit a political narrative that helps you pass a litmus test in a political party, but it doesn't belong in the mouths of Christians. And there's many reasons for that. First and foremost is Imago Dei. This is something I've written about before if you've read my blogs. It's a doctrine that's too deep to cover here. Simply put, a person in a country illegally is still a person made in the image of God, Imago Dei. It doesn't change because of longitudinal or latitudinal barriers. Borders might define a country's boundary in the earthly world, but they don't set a spiritual boundary. People are made in God's image, whether here, there, or just everywhere. Imago Dei alone requires me to honor them, love them, and care for them regardless of the line on a map. Secondly, they are seeking a better life here. They're after the bread at the bakery through that open window. And Christians need to encourage an immigration system with doors that people can walk through, not open windows that people sneak in. We need to hold our politicians to the standard of Imago Dei, a standard that says people are not pawns for political platforms. They are not for the use of a party to get voters on the rolls, nor are they for the use of a party to get elected because it will deport them. They are not to be leveraged. They are a people. Leveraging people for political gains is sickening, should be sickening to anyone. Now, does this mean we turn our heads away from the political issue? No. It means we face the issue head on. It means we lead the issue. If it involves people, then it should involve Christians. Now, let me qualify something before you judge my words too harshly and tune out. Not all people in the United States are here to feed their family. Not all are here seeking work. Some are here to do harm, and some do bring harm. Some bring chaos. These folks, like MS-13 and terrorists and dealers of death to America's young people, in the form of a simple fentanyl pill, they need to be arrested. They need to be put on the first plane back to their home countries and face the consequences. Where their home's government is complicit in the drug trade or human trafficking, torture, rape, and looking the other way, our government needs to deal swiftly in a demanding accountability of those countries, those leaders. And boundaries must be set. Expectations must be met. More power to any administration that will classify these criminals and terrorists, drug dealers, as invaders. Invaders seek to do harm and profit from their invasion. They're takers of life and liberty. And this is what gangs and drug runners do. They are indeed terrorists in that they terrorize. Now, having said that, let's set this group of criminals aside and these terrorists aside for a minute. And what about the sojourners across this nation? Those people that are seeking the bread. Those that are working the produce field and staffing restaurants and building homes, attending colleges to choose a better life and chase a better life. Those living three families in a mobile home until they can establish themselves to get in a stronger economic situation. Those in our education system, our urgent care facilities. Are they taking our jobs? Are they eating our dogs, as one candidate stated on the campaign trail? Or getting benefits for free that our veterans don't get? Are they dirty and lesser? Are they all rapists, murderers? Are they refugees? Well, let's think about that and break that down. First of all, what is a refugee? A refugee is somebody who has been forced to flee his or her country because of persecution, war, or violence. And that's the United Nations definition. So many likely are refugees. Many do come from violent countries where they feel they must flee in order to live freely without fear, with opportunity for safety, let alone economic opportunities. Are we simply to just turn them away? Round them up the same way as the criminals and terrorists and send them back without any due process? And what would we be sending the folks back to? Harm? The goodwill of a dictator that missed them at the Sunday service? Will they be welcomed with open arms by the government cartels and the gangs that they fled? Or are we simply sending them back to be imprisoned, murdered, or to starve? Now, there were certainly refugees in the Bible, Jesus being one that we ought to recognize right off. When King Herod ordered every male child under 2 years old to be killed because he was threatened by the talk of a new king being born, Joseph took his family and he fled. He took Jesus to Egypt until the passing of King Herod, and then he returned. Moses and a nation of people were refugees. God preserved them as they lived as a people escaping slavery in Egypt, but wandering in a desert without a place to call home. Rahab is another, the prostitute in Jesus' own lineage. She sought refuge with Israel after she spied for that nation. And Ruth is another. She took refuge in the care of Boaz, a foreigner to her, someone who blessed her rather than cursing her. Okay, but you say not all fit this definition, and you're right. Not all are fleeing violence. There's nobody after them. So what about them? They're here, so what should we do? To answer this, I would turn to that first story that I talked about with you, the Good Samaritan. And I would turn to a blessing that every American has, voting. Now, I'm not going to retell the whole story of the Good Samaritan. You know it. But I will get to the point that Jesus made in his words. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And unlike the snarky lawyer he was talking to, we shouldn't answer Jesus' command by saying, well, who is my neighbor? As if we can simply ignore another's plight because they aren't part of our group. Your neighbor is whoever God places in your line of sight. Your neighbor is whoever is in need. And if we love them as we love ourselves, we'll never wish harm on them. We'll only wish blessings on them. Now, we would never deny ourselves medical care, so we can't deny our neighbor. We would never deny ourselves shelter, so we can't deny our neighbor. And we'd never deny ourselves a hot meal, so we can't deny our neighbor. We don't talk poorly of ourselves. We can't talk poorly of our neighbor. So that's a recap of the Good Samaritan. If you want to know more of the whole story, go back to episode 1. Now, what about our blessing as Americans, voting? As we seek to be neighbors and we are taking care of the least of these, we also have the privilege of taking part in the shaping of American policy through our vote. The acts that we might do as a Christian, they run parallel to the acts that we might do as a citizen. And here's the thing. Simply put, without a country, we don't have a vote. So we need a border. It's part of what defines a country. And I encourage you to vote for those policies that secure the border from illegal immigration. I encourage you to vote for politicians who will strongly come against the invasion of drugs and weapons and rape and murder in the form of bad actors, individuals, cartels, gangs, and foreign governments complicit with it. I encourage you to support the deportation of all terrorists and gang members. Then, while you cast your vote, I hope you find yourself caring for the little girl who was in your town illegally and was used in the sex trade on her way there. She's the quiet one who flinches when men are around. I hope you'll find yourself feeding the family that sneaked across the desert in the middle of the night. I hope you'll find yourself educating the children that show up on the school's doorstep. I hope that you won't mind paying somebody to mow your lawn so he can pay off the $15,000 it took to get him and his family here before the collector comes for him, even if you know he's in your town illegally. It's quite a conundrum. On the one hand, we can cast our vote to strengthen immigration, a system that's in chaos. On the other hand, I hope that Jesus finds us busy caring for our neighbor, no matter their language, their ethnicity, their country of origin, without an ID check and without question. Politics and voting for policy and people don't always align with what Scripture teaches us. Christians are just as stuck with bad choices as any other group. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't participate in our civic duty that truly is a blessing. We should vote. We sometimes have to vote for what is simply the closest solution or candidate to our beliefs. For those who are not Christians, but maybe listening to this, I would encourage you to stop judging Christians. We are an imperfect people who believe that they serve a God who gave and gives mercy to them that they don't deserve. We don't deserve. We're like the folks in a hospital in a continuum of different stages of health. And we hope we're all pointed in the direction of healing from whatever failings as God teaches us along our own journeys. We're a people who, contrary to popular belief, are serving the least of these, as the Bible calls the needy among us. Maybe you don't know that because you're not a part of it. So seek to understand and then to speak. And here's what I can tell you about the Christians I hang out with, about the church that I belong to. We have a firewood ministry. We house sojourners coming through the town, and we feed them. We support and serve at the local food closet and fish fry. We have a Spanish language service, no ID required. We have a grief support group, a divorce support group. We send hygienic products and toys to kids across the globe every Christmas season. And we buy diapers, formula, and clothing and provide medical support for expectant mothers. We have youth, college age, and men and women's life groups. We freely give without compulsion parts of our paycheck to support all of these neighbors. We adopt children because the least of these are our neighbors. We send our folks to schools during parent-teacher conferences to interpret for those who need to communicate with a teacher about the undocumented children that they care about as much as I care about my own when I had those conferences. Now, we don't have these services so I can list them here in a video and be pious. We have these because we have neighbors, and our neighbors are in need. I'll ask you, what group are you a part of that is doing this work? And let me be political for a minute. To Joe Biden, I say, shame on you for using people as pawns, to use the suffering of others and the hopes and dreams to fill voter rolls. Work on your platform so that you don't have to fill states with more people on a census so you can get more representatives in Congress. And to Donald Trump, I say shame on you. Shame on you for not knowing that the best and brightest from all the other countries aren't just engineers, doctors, and programmers, as you've spoken on when you were on the campaign. Many of the best are farmers and laborers and carpenters and chefs and masons. They are the best at the trades, and we need these immigrants too. It is elitist to think less of the folks in the trades than your programmers and your engineers and your smart people. And perhaps you should use those 80,000 extra IRS agents that you talk about that Joe Biden put in place to establish immigration kiosks in other countries all over the world, and folks could start there with the process. To ICE, I say, as you do your duties, don't come into my school, don't come into my church, don't go into hospitals, don't go to the courts, don't bring trauma and danger to those doorways. It's not an appropriate place to complete your duties. Now, did I solve getting veterans a home and before providing a motel room for an immigrant? No. Did I solve the healthcare crisis in America? No. And we all need to continue to work on these issues and more. We have to be involved. I do know this. There is weeping and gnashing of teeth for those immigrants being deported. And there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth for those who didn't care for them. We don't get to ask, who is my neighbor? We simply have to care. And I hope that someday we have the political will to have a door people can walk through rather than busting through the windows. Something that both parties can agree on. Something that works for immigration. Now let me leave you with a thought from my past. I visited Mexico at 16 and I went to the barrios. I was on a mission trip, a typical youth group thing, and handing out Bibles in the Spanish language and eating street tacos and camping on the beach. I did it. I did it with joy. On that mission, I learned an important lesson that stayed with me for life. We are not there to bring freedom and democracy, Coca-Cola products, and business networks. Not us Christians. You could be in a job that does that. But when you're on a mission, we're not there for that. We're not there to get them to dress differently or sing American worship songs. They should write their own songs that are relevant in their own cultures. We're there to open the door to a challenged life, a changed life, a renewed life, a new creation, a transformed mind, even in the circumstances that I found people to be in. I remember being in Guaymas, and it was dark. I was in a bad part of town, and a woman in white pants came toward me, stumbling along. I was really uncomfortable and sort of scared, and she stopped in front of me expectantly. And I reached my hand forward with a Bible in it. And she took the Bible, she grasped it to her chest as if it were her life, and broke down crying and spoke so rapidly I could not understand, except for a couple of words she said over and over. Gracias, espera. Thank you. Hope. The next day I walked through the barrios and knocked on the doors. At one dwelling, a tin and cardboard and an old lumber shack, an older woman answered the door, and she looked at me and my partner and invited us in. And it was about a 10 by 12 space with a pallet in one corner, a fire pit in another, with a pot and a plate and an old petroleum barrel in the middle of the house that caught dripping rain. And she had chickens, 3. These were her wealth, her possessions, her riches. And they scratched around the house, and they perched on the edge of the barrel, and they drank from it, and they pooped in it. The woman had 2 aluminum cups, like those that we use for camping trips, the old Coleman cups. And she dipped the cups in the barrel, and she shooed the chickens away, and she handed us the cups of water. We each drank from the cups, even as she smiled at us, yet had a look of doubt that we would even accept the water from a barrel that her chickens were drinking out of. Now, I drank all of mine, and then I asked for another. And at that moment, her demeanor changed. She was being respected as the hostess. She had something to offer me, even as I came to offer her something. And she had dignity in front of much younger and much richer people. And the lesson that I learned from both of these encounters, the one in Weymouth and the one at the person's house, was humility. In both encounters, there was thanksgiving at a deep level. The woman who gave me the water got to be the provider, something that she likely rarely got to do. It placed her in a position of importance. And I don't know if she ever read the Bible that I gave her, or even if she could read. But I know that she was Jesus to me at that moment. So physical borders, rivers, mountains, walls, armies, they keep people apart. And we tend to call those on the other side them, and the others, and they. But there isn't a spiritual border. In this spiritual world, there are no others. There are only neighbors with the desire to eat, drink, learn, create, worship, and live. So, be careful. When we place labels of they, them, others, we diminish the very attributes of human beings that God gave them. Whether you believe in the creation story as a myth, a metaphor, a historical narrative, or some combination, one thing that comes out of that writing is that we are made in the image of God. Beings created with imago Dei. And this has bearing on our actions and our words and our choices. Yes, a vote for law and order can absolutely be made. God is a God of order. We see that in the creation narrative. He set laws in motion. God's a God of law. But why did he make law? He made law because without them, we couldn't see where we were, lost and hateful and selfish. And when juxtaposed against the law, we can see what is in us that is right or wrong. It was the law that exposed our wrongful actions at first, and still does. But beyond the simple words of the law, like thou shalt not kill or steal or covet, there is a motivation to why those laws exist. And to break these laws is to hurt our neighbor. We can't do that. May we never use law to hurt people. May we always use it to protect. Let's pray for our state, national, and local leaders as they work through the tough issues of having a country of laws and borders, but ensure that people are cared for at the same time. God bless you and keep you. God make his face to shine upon you. God turn his countenance toward you and bring you peace, and bring peace to the immigrants. Amen.